KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat. Every evening 7 to 8 p.m. KFM's Hot Seat. Only on 933 KFM. KFM's Hot Seat in association with
Nile Gold. A crystal malt lager beyond an ordinary malt.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the 933 KFM Hot Seat. Charles Mwangu Shampadi with me in the studio. Angelo Izama and Bana Tabaide unable to make it tonight. With us in the hot seat tonight, let me first introduce the guest and then the issue we're going to discuss over the next 1 hour. Alright, Godfrey Otobi, National Coordinator for Civil Society Organizations for Peace in Northern Uganda. Very nice to have you on the hot seat.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners.
Lazarus Okiira. Laz.
Okiira, yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Is Okiira?
Okiira.
Okiira. Yes. Lazarus Okiira. Commonly known as Laz, my friends. National Coordinator for National Platform for Peace Building and Conflict Prevention, based in the office of the Prime Minister. And we'll be discussing over the next 1 hour engaging the youth in peace building efforts, especially in a region that is recovering after years of conflict, Northern Uganda. How can the youth engage? This is in line with International Peace Day. Will be on 21st of September, exactly. Sometime next week. Yeah. Should be. Very nice to have you, Laz, on the hot seat.
It's my pleasure, Charles.
Angela, maybe I should begin with you. When you're discussing subjects like youth engage, you're sometimes likely to fall in at the deep end. But let me ask the Laz from the office of the Prime Minister. On this show, we love people from government because we pay our taxes to government. So we have a lot of questions to ask people who work for government or who serve government. What exactly is it that you are trying to do for Ugandan youth apart from commemorating another international day for which you must have a Ugandan chapter of some kind of celebration in a country where 78% are young people 35 years and below? What exactly is it?
Yeah, Charles, I think that's a very valid question. I would probably love to have a background before I really answer your question specifically on youth. I would like to let you know that the government of Uganda is very quite cognizant of peace building and conflict prevention.
Is it?
Yes. If you look at our constitution, let me just read it for you.
You can dispense with the constitution because for us we study the constitution in action, and that is what we do as journalists. We are curators of what the constitution means.
Yes, Angela, that's also correct. But I mean, this is an evidence-based world. So in whatever I say,
that's
there
why
must
we are
be a
saying
source.
Put the book aside.
Yes, yes.
And let us talk about firstly why youth. This is a peace day.
Yes.
It's a UN day observed around the world. Why the focus on young people?
All right. I would have loved not really to handle youth in isolation, but since you are insisting,
it's here in your theme. Make your voice be heard. Youth must engage now.
Yeah, but Angela, in all fairness, it is important to have a background. You understand? So how did we arrive at choosing youth in this case?
Exactly, that's my question.
But I just want to mention, in case you may agree with me, that it is important that we should all know that government is very cognizant and supportive of any peaceful initiatives. It is in the constitution. It is in our national development plan. It is in action, as you said. For example, right now, Office of the Prime Minister of Government has designed a program, a special program called Peace, Recovery and Development Plan for the people who are actually PRDP. Thank you very much.
We've been discussing that for many years.
Yes. So this is just basically for the people who have been facing humanitarian crisis in northern Uganda.
Now, what Angela was actually asking you, Laz, is put the paperwork somewhere on the side.
No problem.
Put the constitution somewhere on the side, and let's discuss Ugandan youth as we live with them, as we interact with them, and how their government behaves with them, how the civil society behaves with these same groups of people, and the international community.
Yeah.
What is in the constitution really doesn't matter. How it is applied in the everyday lives of these youth not only in northern Uganda but across the country is what matters.
Yeah, that is your view, and I respect it. But to me, it is always important. I mean, it's the very same you guys who are saying you should stop Holocaust. So I need to, when I'm saying anything, it has to be source. It has to be with some evidence. So that's why.
So go ahead, quote for us the constitutional article, chapter, and verse.
Yeah,
we'll be listening.
So on youth. First of all, this day was agreed upon by the UN General Assembly in 1981, and then later on in 2001 they recognized 21st September that it should be an international day celebrated all over the world. So this year the theme is make your voice heard.
Peace and democracy, make your voice heard.
Exactly. And in Ugandan case, we've decided through the national platform, peace building and conflict prevention, to handle and specifically focus on youth. Why? And between me and you will agree there are various reasons. I mean, when you're talking about the future,
what's the overriding reason?
This is exactly what I'm driving at. When you're talking about the future, there's no anywhere you'll avoid talking about young people, children, and the youth. And that's very important for you to know. Number two, you know, a lot of research has been done, and when you look at some of the conflict drivers in this country, the potential conflict drivers, unemployment is a serious issue. For example, in the north, land wrangles is a serious issue. Gender sexual based violence is a serious issue. I mean, again, Charles, in your preamble, you mentioned that over 78% of the population are comprising of young people, and I agree with you. So this is a concern. Now, when you are planning, there is great need for you to consider young people, and that's the reason.
I agree.
We pick the young people, so they must be engaged now.
That's why I was saying I concede all of these things, because here on this show, we have a special focus on young people.
Thank you.
And for me particularly, my interest is in human security.
Yes.
Which is a concept you understand.
Yeah.
The youth bulge we're facing right now is applying pressure at all levels, but there's a huge disconnect between government planning and government action on the youth. In fact, much of it is just rhetoric.
Why are you saying there's a huge disconnect?
Just go outside this gate here, you'll see what I'm saying. On our streets today, the people who you see selling flags, books, other assorted items, their ages are growing younger and younger. Their numbers are increasing. Urban fragility, which you mentioned, the migration of young people into towns, applying pressure on utilities, which of course are not planned for, applying pressure on housing, again not planned for. So when you say that the government has a focus, aside from citing documents, I would like to see how the policy is in action.
Great. Angela, I mean, this is your view, and I really respect it. But somehow, if I really understood you well, you are basically agreeing with me that the reason why we picked on youth is really valid. I mean, they are facing all kinds of challenges. It's a no-brainer
because across Africa today we have a youth bulge, and this is something that researchers pointed out over 10 years ago. Because the fact that the populations in these countries are growing, or that other countries have experienced these pressures, is nothing new.
Yeah.
So if you 10 years later you say that we should pat you on the back for suddenly discovering young people are important to stability, that's a no-brainer. But anyway, put that aside. Tell me how government policy is working in action.
Great. I'll tell you that first of all, government support for the young people is totally very clear. It's on the wall. There is a full ministry for young people.
It's one of the least funded ministries.
That's another debate to discuss later. That's another debate. But I'm just here to let you know that it is quite very
clarify that
the government is supportive. I mean
there is no full youth ministry for young people.
I have not said
There is a conglomeration of a ministry that puts together gender, labor, social development. It has a desk for the people with disability.
Yes.
Has a desk for the elderly.
Exactly.
Has a desk for young people.
Yes.
So there is no full ministry. I remember.
But there's a minister for youth.
Yes, there is a minister for youth.
I mean, whether you call it
What is
full
the
or it is
minister?
a half, Charles, that's another debate.
What is the minister
But what
of
I'm
budget?
simply saying is that it is very indicative for us to understand that government has got interest and has got clear manifestation to support young people, and that's why there's a ministry.
manifestation I checked last
Angela, in all fairness, you have got to prepare a runway for a plane to land.
Okay.
So this is what
just before
there is no plane.
Hold it, Angelo. Let me ask Godfrey Otobi.
Yes.
What is in it for 78% of Uganda's population who are 35 years and below that this International Day of Peace means in the Ugandan context?
Thank you, Bernard.
Charles.
Oh, Charles. Charles, sorry, I'm
That's
referring to
Charles,
somebody
this
who
is
is not there.
Angelo.
Okay,
Bernard is
sorry about
He's the
that.
silent guest.
Okay, thank you, listeners. I want to concur with Angelo that I think in the early 90s, when the issue of youth bulge was raised, and especially in relationship to conflict, when they say actually a growing or a large population of youth is almost proportional to the likelihood of conflict occurring, and this is particularly true for African countries, where I think the planning for engaging youth has actually been a problem. And I think we are not, Uganda in this case is not in isolation of that fact. For this year's situation, I think there's been a realization that opportunities for youth seems not to be forthcoming. And I want to agree that the government is trying to do what they can do, but as civil society we are saying that is not enough. We need to do more in terms of creating opportunities for youth. And for me, I want to agree that the theme for the year is valid, in the sense that when we see what is happening around the world, what is happening on the continent and world over, look at the protest that has been happening in Africa, but also when you look at the scenario, the situation that happened in London, it shows you that globally youth has been neglected, and they want their voice to be heard.
The question Angelo was asking, which we'll answer after a short commercial break, is why this late realization? I'll give you some numbers. 1981, when the United Nations General Assembly was passing this World Day for Peace, a group of people, some just out of their youth, were heading to the bush in Uganda. In 1987, the group you focus on, civil society organization in Northern Uganda, for peace in Northern Uganda. 1987, another rebellion was beginning in Northern Uganda. Now, 20 years later, we're realizing that, look, we might actually be having a problem on our hands. Did we forget? Is it a late realization? Or is it an inevitable discussion we must have now, and then we need to discuss, because we have lost so much time, how do we put that on the discussion table? After a short commercial break.
KFM Hot Seat. The hottest debate.